So we're going to have an exam 1 on Friday. It's 1 hour and 20 minutes long. The directions for this exam and exam 2 will say simplify completely, find exact answers, and show your work. If you have the correct answer but do not have work showing how you arrived at that answer, you may not receive full credit. So to simplify completely, you'd make sure you do things like reduce fractions. 15/25 would be reduced to 3/5, for example. That comes in a lot in Chapter 7 when you have to reduce those polynomials in rational expressions. We'll look at that on our WebAssign review in a minute. Also, you have to show exact answers. 2/3, for example, is exact. What your calculator gives you for that 0.67 is not exact because you have to round it off. If you put 2 divided by 3 in your calculator, you get 0.66666, and then you round that off to 0.67 and it is no longer exact. So use a fraction if you have to round off from your calculator. Do not round off. The test covers sections 4.1 through 4.4, and then again chapter 7, 7.1 through 7.7. There will be 17 problems on the test. 2 are word problems. Make sure on the word problems you use algebra. Now let's take a look at WebAssign and see your review lesson here. So your review is a very good place to practice for your test. The review is not required for your grade, so it's optional. And if you keep, I think the directions are here. Yes, after 3 tries, the practice another version will be available. So try a few times, even if you don't know the answers, just put 3 answers in if you want to practice another version. And then, of course, once you practice another version, you can see the solution to the other version. So when you solve equations, systems of equations in Chapter 4, you will need to know which method you're using. So there's the graphing method, there's the substitution method, or there's the elimination method. And you'll need to use the method instructed by the problem to get full credit. Remember, these ones that have fractions like this, you would go ahead and multiply by the least common denominator so that you can get those fractions out of there. That would be your first step. So, for example, problem number 4, the first equation you would multiply by 12, and then the denominators would cancel. You would have, after you multiply by 12, you would have 3m plus 4n equals -1. And then the second equation, you would multiply by 4, the least common denominator there. That would give you 2m minus 5n equals 7. So then you would go ahead and work with those equations, which would be easier. And you see the word problems then, you'll have one from section 4.4, similar to one of these. Make sure you know whatever you need to know on the review, you need to know on the test, because there's no notes allowed. You can't bring in a 3x5 card or anything like that. So here, for example, you need to know how to find perimeters. Perimeters are the lengths of all the sides added together. So you'll need to know that on the exam. In Chapter 7, we do these rational expressions, which are basically fractions with polynomials in them. So mostly it's factoring and canceling, right? So factor and cancel whenever you can. These ones where you have opposites, like number 8, 13 minus d over d minus 13, those reduce to be -1. And you can see how that is in your textbook. Or you can email me and I'll elaborate on that. So these ones that say divide or multiply, don't divide or multiply. First, factor. And then, if you're dividing, flip and multiply, and then cancel whatever you can. So don't start distributing and multiplying out. Instead, it's all factoring as much as you can and then canceling what you can. When you're adding or subtracting rational expressions, that's harder, isn't it? You have to have the same denominators. These do have the same denominators, which makes the problem easier. And then in problems 13 and 14, you have to get a common denominator, and that's described in your book, or again, you can email me and I'll be happy to post some of these worked out. Then you have these complex fractions in numbers 16 and 17 to simplify. So complex fractions have fractions in their fractions. To be completely simplified, you would not leave any of your answers as complex fractions. Numbers 18 and 19, you have an equation. You see the equal sign? When you have an equation to solve with rational expressions, it starts out looking like these earlier problems. So problems 18 and 19 start out like problems 14 and 15. So don't get them mixed up. You start out the same, but you do not finish the same. So don't get those types from section 7.4 mixed up with the types from section 7.6. One has an equal sign in it to begin with and one does not. And yes, you will have a formula as well to solve. So where you're solving for a letter and there's several letters, like number 19. And you can see more practice problems in that homework section or in your book. And then you'll have another word problem from 7.7. Again, I pick one similar to what I put on the review because I know there's so many different word problems that can get confusing. So I pick one along the lines of a fraction problem like number 20 or a wind problem like number 21. If you have any other questions, please feel free to email me.